Good afternoon. My name is Aleksey. I'm currently engaged in blockchain analysis, and I name my project Bloxy. And it basically developed successfully, although it began as purely my initiative. The fact that today I will tell a little bit about my interest, a little bit about the project. Of course, there will be a lot of data about blockchain. Then questions. About workshop, let's postpone the discussion to the end. Because to better understand what will be in the workshop, it's better first see what will happen today. Because the workshop will be such a continuation of today. In general, I am a programmer. We need to start with this. I don't trade cryptocurrencies, they are not very interested in me as money, even after I started doing analytics. Before I started studying blockchain, I was involved in many different projects as a programmer and as an architect. This is advertising in the internet and voice IP and a lot of different things. I wrote programs by myself, designed systems, founded companies by myself, and now Bloxy is another company, the next step, and it's very interesting. In general, probably, everything started with the fact that at first I was just interested in blockchain. That is, it's such an interesting technology, but pretty quickly I came to the fact that technology in itself it does not give an understanding at all. Why it is needed, and this picture is here. It's kind of how I see blockchain and how I try to analyze it. That is, in the center there are some blocks, transactions, addresses, and so on and so forth. But around him is the community. That is society, without which blockchain does not make any sense at all. Around it, there are money, cryptocurrencies, crypto assets, about which Maxim told. In addition, the business is built on blockchain, ICO, DAO, and others. In addition, blockchain can generally be considered as a phenomenon of nature. That is, it has some laws that are not written on him, but to which he follows. Here is a very interesting point that looking at the data, I quickly realized it, and this is the most interesting. You can see some laws unwritten. We generally this community at what happens there. That is in general what is happening there, but the main issue that I had from the very beginning. Until now, I cannot fully answer it, but we will see some things today with you. I hope that it will be interesting for everyone. Thus, when we look at what's going on, we have resources as we can see it. From the point of view horizontally, there is such a conventional access. These are cryptocurrencies and a blockchain itself. Vertically, these are specialists and the public. So it's clear that for a cryptocurrency in principle, there is already a large amount of tools for specialists, which they are used mainly for trading on stock exchanges. Well, or to participate in ISO. There are many companies working here. There is a lot of tools for the public in cryptocurrencies too. There is CoinMarketCap, a lot of media writing about it actively. If you take blockchain, then there is more to take than just cryptocurrencies. There is much less than what is there. For specialists, there is a toolkit in the form of Web3, API, Etherscan, various blockchain explorer. But in order to understand if you use blockchain explorers, what is happening even to a specialist is extremely difficult. That is, I started with this too. I started to watch how the ISO goes there. I began to draw on paper. It's impossible to understand without paper. A lot of paper leaves. The analysis of one ISO takes a day to understand what's happening there. And I so wanted to do it in seconds. And so there was a project in Bloxy, whose goal was to generally answer this question: what is happening in blockchain? Now this answer is only concentrated on the Ethereum, which was first chosen. Although in principle I believe that there are other blockchains which were also very interesting to see. It's obviously why I choose the Ethereum because it contains all the previous components of which I spoke. It has business and money, and there are many communities, and there are a lot of things happening that are not clear at all. Bitcoin is much smaller. That's it. Also, Bitcoin is the very first in terms of capitalization. The Ethereum was chosen. And what was done? But the idea is quite trivial. Sergey drew it on the slides. You need to take a node of the blockchain, you need to index it in a workhouse. After that, you can use this data not as you use the node via API, but much broader. That is, you can firstly look at the website Bloxy.info. All that I will show you today, almost everything is on the website. You can use the data in analytical tools and bite them. There are in different ways, twist it around. We'll see this today too. But low-level access is API, which can be loaded as raw data, so the data passes through the algorithm and take another, given not only on-chain but off-chain about what Maxime told today and analyze them. Well, this is the structure, in fact, the technical structure of the Bloxy project which exists today and you can use. By starting the website, let's move on the subject conversation. As I said, it means that data is still indexed. And if this is the case, then they can be requested as simple SQL. Let me increase this a little. Here we will now execute such an SQL. If you have not even written SQL ever, well, in principle here, what do I want to know? I want to find out what people spent most of their gas on last month. Gas is the commission in the Ethereum network. Knows. When you want your transaction to pass faster, you raise the price of gas. If this happens all the time, for example, with this smart contract, then there are many people who are very interested in making transactions quickly on a smart contract. But in the last 30 days, I will fulfill the request. We will see in fact which smart contracts were the most valuable from the point of view of people, from the point of view of community. Well, let's do it. Now let's try. Look, first, someone, if it really works on the Ether, probably imagine about the GUI, the price of your calls. 500 is a lot. And I can tell that in June the price was 2 or 3 GUI, and it was possible to execute the transaction without ceremony. But there were people who spent 509 GUI on 483 transactions. But in the sense of each, on average, this is a lot. That's it. What is it? This is the address of smart contracts that they called. You can take this smart contract address now and go to Bloxy. Bloxy allows you to look for a character, address, method name, or hash transaction and see what it is. This is some kind of smart contract, which has no sources, unfortunately. There are no names, methods, because the authors didn't want to show them. But there were 2,374 transactions, real ones, that you can see what is happening there. But by the way, on June 28, just this very day, you can open a transaction. Now it will boot. this at the top of the transaction call. It seems that it looks like other scan. Then there is a trace execution, and below it is the graph that shows, in fact, the essence of this transaction. In that form, in which by that means, for example, to me. This man with the sevens. He called here this smart contract, which is very popular, to which people spend gas. He called method tokens. This is a decentralized exchange and something else that calls. So, in fact, this contract, it allows you to trade on a decentralized exchange. It may not be very lucky for me now, this is a particular transaction, and if I turn back, then let's look at the transactions in which he transferred the money. Here, already probably there is no money here either, but this is also trade. In fact, the last trend that people spend on commission on that is to trade on decentralized exchanges over DEX. But in this case, this is what EtherDelta uses for trading. But there might be others. Let's look at something else then. Take, for example, in June there was a token sale, such token as FAIA. Token sale can also be analyzed in the form of a graph. Well, this graph is currently being built. So, when I asked to show this picture, the actual data is read as on the slide. It was drawn from the database. They are simply displayed on the slide in this form on the pictures. This is a token. You see he has a big green arrow. This is a smart contract that actually makes a token sale. It's smart contract of the token. You can open it, and here there is a bunch of people. Let's open it to full screen and do a little buzz. Yes, there was a chaos. This chaos is a transfer of the Ether, which here comes from people who in fact were trying to buy this token. And here there is one little man. Now I will try to find him, which actually got back it all this money. Well, that's all. These participants are actually token sale, which transfer the Ether forward and back. What, in the east? This? Yes, he also has friends. So, it can also be further revealed. Here he is. These others, which he transferred, you see? This is from transfer of others. So, this is what he also collected. In general, so it's possible to look at the structure that is inherent to ICO, is peculiar to exchanges. So, each exchange has its own structure which you can look at. Each ICO has a structure that can be viewed. And now, of course, we are looking at some specific example. Well, we took their one address and look, but the database provides an opportunity to look at the whole. That's what happens in general on the Ethereum. For example, what happens today? For one day, the network is a lot of interesting things. So, right now, for example, there are 439 active token sale, but here it's necessary to say how it's considered. All these figures I do not collect data there from some networks about what is happening. All the data that you see is taken from the blockchain. What is a token sale from the point of view of the blockchain? This transaction which we received either from some external sources and pass tokens in response. And they have to be distinguished from the centralized exchanges in which there are such transactions too. Right now there are such facts. 439 different contacts that work that way. This is one day. So, the participants of crowd sale, by the way, are now a little 1,950. At one time, there were there for 5,000 a day, and by the way, the trend is now falling. Some of them can be looked at who's more there, all for example, transferred money there. Today, somebody transferred 122,000 others, you can see who it is. And surely this man is not very poor. He has 24 million and the entrance is most likely an exchange. So, timing of the transaction of tokens by time, it can be seen that interest is changing very much. It's constantly changing. We cannot say that there are some tokens on the other which are stable. Stable are transferred with each other with them, but operation are there, constantly changing. Here's an example. Here is a purple, is the RX, known token. But then there was a lot of transaction to him. Then it falls, and he is no more. Then there appears here net, for example. For this, in principle, everything can also be monitored and needed to be monitored. If you are working on tokens there, then of course it's interesting. This is the top of crowd sale. They are calculated not according to the data provided by the ICO itself, but according to the data in the blockchain. And that's an objective picture. Here all the tokens are ERC20. Well, now is daytime, 24 hours. What is there here? So, what happens, for example, can be looked at by smart contracts. How many different smart contracts are used by months? This is from 2016 to the current moment. There are unique addresses. By the way, it's even here, fortunately, that from April to May there is a significant drop in interest in this topic. I don't know what this is connected with, but by the way, it's worth a look. Because I have not watched this chart for a long time, but it is clear, in fact, that the peak was a million. A million smart contracts, unique ones, were used for a month. This is a lot, of course, given that in general 40 million about the addresses are in the network Ethereum. There are about a million addresses in the Ethereum. A large number of smart contracts are created on the day. There are sometimes under 40,000. In fact, many figures in the Ethereum amazed me because when you read there are any media it seems that these ICO that they are some thousands. In fact, it turns out that apart from this, there are a lot of things going on that are not visible, and there are hundreds of tokens out there every day. I don't know what the people are doing just as a test, but really they are spending it on gas. And in general, something behind this is worth it. Which are more often called methods, for example, can be counted. Naturally, here in the first place is the transfer proof. These methods are naturally ERC20. Then there is deposit, split, withdrawal trade. Historically, ERC20 is still on the first place, but DEX has steadily taken the second place. And gradually, it seems to me that gradually the focus on the use smart contracts towards DEX will move. DEX is a decentralized exchange, they are increasingly called, and as we can see, they are wasting gas. People are very interested in. They directly believe it, and by the event, here the event channel on the right, but here trade is on the fourth place. Trade is a sign of closing an order on a decentralized exchange, but this channel so incomprehensible. It's a waste of spent gas. Here it's very difficult to see, fortunately. This is a big circle, this is the method of transfer. Here, on average, it does not spend a lot of gas on it, but it's cost many times. And here it's clear that people like to spend the same amount of gas on the calls of smart contracts. So there is a wallet there that spends. In general, the analysis of gas prices, I think, is generally worth doing separately because it shows that the Ethereum community is moving. The community always spends money on gas where it's interested. These were the CryptoKitties. People spend money if ISO somehow opens, it's immediately obvious. In fact, you can estimate the price of gas for a specific smart contract very quickly, as far as people they believe in it. By the way, about CryptoKitties. So, here are the charts, two graphics. These are purely out of the blockchain. So these also data from blockchain. The upper graph, red one, is the number of ERC-721 token transfers. So, if you're familiar with CryptoKitties and other games that are done on blockchain, token ERC-721, this is kind of token that doesn't have a value, but it's unique. You can mark each item with this token. It's like not money, it's more like some kind of token with a unique ID. And every kitty is actually an ERC-721 token. But after people came up with these kitties, one company came up with it. Many began to copy them very quickly. That's it. To do the same similar tokens, but it's permissible for lots of land, or there was a token for some pictures for celebrities, there was, and the bottom graph is the number of different such tokens. It can be seen that this trend big grows with CryptoKitties and what is happening here. They gradually abate, and now they are in such a condition. On the day about 10,000 such tokens are transferred. This is very little, of course, 10,000 tokens. But people began to do different such tokens. Here is the bottom chart, the number of such tokens, and if there were only 3 tokens at the beginning of the year, January, 3 tokens were different. Then there were already 44, and now there are 51 at the beginning of June. And every month the number of such tokens began to grow. This suggests that developers are constantly trying to revive interest in crypto games and use somehow this 721 token. To the left are the different symbols which they can use. Of course, CryptoKitties is still a champion. It was the most transferred because it was the first to appear and everyone liked. By the way, here's a chart. Maybe it's not very well seen. The first column is the number of transfers. The second one is unique people who participate. For example, CryptoKitties, this was 56,000 people. Unique recipients of the token are 76,000 people. There is, by the way, a currency such an interesting metric. This is the ratio of the number of recipients of the number of senders. It can be used to judge how symmetrical the market is in general. It's interesting that all these kitties have 721. They have very symmetrical community. It actually works as a currency. If you look at some typical ICO, there will be a terrible shift to one side. In fact, tokens which are ERC20, many are very symmetrically arranged. It really is not currency. It's clear that the usual currency should be approximately the same amount. In 721 tokens, this roughly corresponds to one another. Here is just written about it, and it was also interesting to calculate how many kitties people collect, for example, and if such collectors in turn out they really are collectors. For example, there are addresses that have collected 100 different such tokens. There are people who collect many identical cats, for example. In fact, this topic is such it's very interesting from the point of view of the community, and in my opinion, to the end unsolved. So, 721 tokens should be studied precisely from the point of view of how something general happens, how people behave. That Maxim told, it seems to me it would be very interesting to study in more detail, because the first result I received, they were very promising. They were very interesting, and then there is very little speculation. But by the way, on the 721 token too, ICO is conducted, and here these peaks. This is a graph of the amount of transfer of the Ether for this token. This is generally equivalent to selling. This can be said that this ICO is simply not called by anyone, and different colors are different tokens. It seemed that at least CryptoKitties is the first, but it was then the second and third. And here there were attempts such, in my opinion, very successful sales of such tokens. This is ICO is conducted not only on ERC20 but ERC721. I'll tell you a little more about the practical application of these analytics. What are you saying? What are these projects? Now? This one? This brown is a celebrity and red one is CCC. If you don't know what CCC is, I don't know either. You can poke here and see what it is. So CCC is cryptocountries.io. This is probably the sale of countries for the currency. State for tokens assault. But I actually saw several projects in which they sell land for 721 tokens. Quite obvious thing that you can sell for different assets that cannot be measured in money terms, but it's easy to measure in uniqueness. I think there's a lot more to do. Well, about the mixer I already told Sergey. Well, I will not repeat myself, but I have one picture that Sergey did not show. First of all, these addresses, which mixer make up, they have 2 inputs and 3 outputs. And here it's seen. For example, December 2017, this distribution is just the addresses of the entire broadcast. That is, all other addresses were taken in 1 month, all transactions. How many were the incoming addresses unique and how many outbound? Here you can see that this big green circle is an anomaly, absolutely anomaly. Such a circle should not be. And in October 2016 on the left, there is no circle in it and there was not the mixer. Here this circle, this is just these addresses that participated in the mixer. They had 2 entrances and 3 exits, or in and out. For example, if anyone poke here and see his graph, then here it is clear now this is arranged. Here it has 2 in and there are 3 outs. Here it's already visible here. Here it's mixer. You can also just open this friend. And you can click here until blue, until you find the place where the money was eventually withdrawn. That is, you can open it that way, but this network is huge. This is not 2 and not even 10 steps. It needs to be disclosed a lot to get to the place. And you probably will not understand anything. In conclusion, I will show such an example already more relevant to business. This is the data analysis. It's called Wings. So, this prediction market. So this is people who bought Wings tokens, they can participate in guessing the course. So, not the course, the amount of money collected on the ICO. They guess. They will collect 5 million or 10 million, and the one who guesses better, they get the reward inversely proportional to the amount they invested in this vote of their Wings tokens, multiplied by the accuracy of their forecasts. I was interested in this story, the question of how might these people who participate in this in the whole story with the vote, how real they are participating in those ICOs for which they vote. First, I looked at what tokens they still have. So this is the so-called correlation analysis. It can not only be used for this purpose. The owners of tokens Wings have a lot of BNT tokens, then ADX and so on. But here it was immediately evident that in fact there was a rather large correlation with those projects in which Wings people really participated, but it was necessary to calculate more accurately, more precisely, this is what. In general, they spent 12,000 others on participation in the ICO as a whole. This is a fairly large figure. This is for those ICOs in which they voted and then participated. Additionally, it's natural. So they believed in these projects so much that they bought tokens. In fact, the purpose of the Wings is to attract interest in the ICO. But the question was that if they did not have tokens Wings, they would participate in this ICO or did not participate, unclear. In order to calculate this, I took another token, which is similar in characteristics to the Wings token. By the way, also an interesting topic, what is similar in characteristics. But it's possible to consider correlations of owners. That's it. Suppose that one token has an address area that strongly overlaps with the address space of another token. Then I believe that they are similar, and it turned out that much less. That is, a similar token, the other only 4,000. In fact, Wings seems to work in the sense that it helps to collect, at least 3 times better than just the casual owner of the random token. By the way, comparing these random addresses in this case would be completely wrong, because the behavior of people. Here is an example of behavior analysis and people's behavior. For example, which have tokens and do not have a token is quite different in the Ethereum. This can be considered from general considerations, but it's statistically very well seen. But you see, the behavior of people who have a very specific token is different. That's interesting. As is. Even one token gives knowledge of what you will do at the next moment in time. It's very interesting. And then I was handed by those who are friends. The address has friends, and friends are those to which there are very many transactions. Friends are not necessarily your acquaintances. As a rule, these are addresses or you own, so maybe they or you are somehow strongly connected. They also buy well. In principle, there is a certain connection within this community, and she works according to other laws than just random people who are scattered around in the blockchain. It's interesting. Probably I thought everything, that's it. I will sum it up. Now I will open this slide. So, I told you about how you can use the website itself, and it's possible that we'll look at this in more detail at the workshop. because I now told it very briefly and not on real examples. For example, the cases is arranged by tags. In principle, everything can be viewed on the website using only the tools that are there. Here are all the reports I showed, including the mixer and the Bing's analysis. It's actually this analytic tool which allows you to simply take data with SQL queries. Thus, it's all that you saw on the screen is not pictures drawn in Excel. It's just given from the database taking just one query. Almost everything is taken by one query and it's shown on the graph. API we did not touch today, but I can also talk in more detail about the API on the workshop. In general, that's all. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexey. I think that we have time for questions, so raise your hands who have questions to Alexey. Let me get to you. Thank you very much for the report. It can be seen that a lot of work has been done. I wonder what your team is. How many people and who, if not secret. We just started to recruit it. Our idea of the team is not so much to create a company that will be engaged in a commercial process, how much the creation of a community that already exists and helps us a lot. Because we cannot do everything. And even I do not really believe that you can do even if you take investments there. I do not really believe that one company can develop it. Because what I have already seen, it exceeds all possible resources that can be spent on it. Now, if you dig into it, it's easy to dig there endlessly. So we want to invite all of you to who has come interesting topics and ideas, or simply that you know how to do neural networks, for example, because I don't know how to do it. And we're trying to evolve now. Well, and besides, we typed some ideas from the outside how it can be used, because this is also a big open question for us. It's essentially like an open source approach. Maybe we'll come to open source. But now we know all the think. As yet, we are not ready to do open source now. Thank you. Where can you read letters? Yes, you can read as letters there, on Bloxy. More questions? Alexey, thank you for the report. Everything was very interesting. Please tell me you can analyze the decentralized exchange? DEX, which is in the Ethereum analyze. I thought that you can analyze these exchanges. Decentralized exchange is built on some kind of blockchain. Yes, it's built on the Ethereum. And you can analyze any cryptocurrency by methods. But the thing is that the decentralized exchange is working with a currency that can be imagined in this blockchain. Basically, these are tokens which... So, in the Ethereum, in general, there are only tokens and Ether itself. If some Bitcoin is traded there, then there will be some token called, I don't know, the Bitcoin token, which is equal to 1 Bitcoin. In principle, we're interested in DEX because everything is visible there. There you cannot especially hide anything, because closed orders are recorded in the blockchain. Are there any other questions? Thank you for the report. I would like to ask why you had a contract there which you showed, which apparently did not post the API. Respectively, he had everything. Was there an attempt to solve this by creating a signature database? Yes, there is a signature database, and we have contracts that are defined without a laid out API. Here is a contract. This is a relay. He does not have this source and the API laid out. From 5 methods, 3 were determined, and 2 we don't know that we can only guess. They are just dashes here, and we define everything else from other contracts. As you do in this case with correlation of 4 bytes, because they are often coincide. No, they don't coincide, and there are not 4 bytes there. I mean 4 bytes there contained in the import transaction. The first 4 bytes are the same for the transfer. There is a similar method of signature, 4 bytes of which coincide with the transfer method. That's how you act in this case. I honestly do not know that they coincide, but maybe there is a change, only it's very small. I understand. Thanks. Can I ask you one more question? You said you want to use neural networks. I would like to know the tasks in which you would like to use them. So, we are also looking for tasks from you. Tasks that can be solved. I can say that it would be interesting to see there. We try to make a classification, for example, without a teacher. But this is not exactly a neural network, but it's still machine learning. With specifically neural networks, it was probably interesting to do something too. Thank you very much again. Are there any other questions? I have a question on the last slide. You have written special thanks to Yandex team. Can you tell us why? Do you have any cooperation? Yes, we have a system built on ClickHouse and they help us. And the alternative teams helps as a consulting company. So it's some kind of free help. Yes. It turns out we're advertising them and they're us. Hardly knows about this Yandex. Alternative knows. Thanks a lot. So I'm just interested in other projects. Since we know that there are many different forks from Ethereum, most likely they have almost the same API. You tried to admit it to Augur, I don't remember they carried their blockchain or it were still on the Ethereum, because it's still the same platform as Wings for prediction. They bet they get tokens for some event only in the real world. Whether there was any post-factum analysis, I understand that the main product is Augur, but whether there was any post-factum analysis who is best predictor of events, They're either their own tokens or for some reason, and there is such a fork from Ethereum. I don't know how compatible it is, I forgot how it's even called. The main idea is that one Bitcoin is equal to one Ether, and they turn out to do it. Mining together with Bitcoin in order to run smart contracts on Ethereum. It is the same platform, it's the same idea, it's just another community. I remember that this project is in South America. I forgot the name of the blockchain. Have you tried to apply your analysis to other projects? So there are two questions. The first one, Guru did not specifically watch. You can do the same analysis for the tokens, not even tokens, it's about the community. Guru is even more community and there is more to watch. And interestingly, when we did Wings analysis, we did not even know how it was arranged. This we then learned. We looked at them as people and watched what they were doing, and that's enough. This is one of the forces that there is statistics. You can take the Augur community and look at all, it's unaccidentally a task for a neural network. Then the Augur community differs from all other communities around any other tokens. This can, in principle, be calculated. It's not that hard. They somehow behave differently, they do something else, and for this it's not even necessary to see how technically the Augur is arranged, and do not even know how accurate they predict, because it is not so important. It's the same game. These are the same kitties, but for sure they behave differently. And for sure you can somehow after something, knowing this. This is about Augur. About the other chains, there was a question on the basis of the Ethereum. We have not connected yet. This question was about some branch of the Ethereum. Yes, I just forgot the name. If someone remembers. It's unlikely to be different from what in the big Ethereum, and the big Ethereum is big, and all the others are small. They have a kind of currency called smart Bitcoin. They turn out to make a lock. You transfer Bitcoins to one address and you appear. How? Yes, Rootstock. I'm talking about another platform. They also have Ethereum as a platform. Yes, they have their own chain. Yes, its own chain. It was interesting to see how much the same address owners behave differently in different chains, because when it branches, it's the same person. He has a private key alone. He behaves differently in two chains. I think this analysis is very interesting to do. Of course, we are still far from that. Another issue is not on the topic. There's more to the analysis and the question. Sorry for the tautology. It turns out we are developing changes, developing some analysis, then immediately begins real-time analysis. If any progress on real-time analysis, let's buy data from the nodes, which is the original source of the transaction, because most users use crypto wallets, use exchanges, use some platforms, and most often they do not download a full blockchain. Then there is the possibility that there are people who receive data first, then all the others, and only then they are broadcasting, because as long as the transaction goes through, they have a competitive advantage in processing these data and therefore making decisions. Cool project. I also had it. I agree that such a project would be great. So this project is being created by the community. The more crypto wallets are created, they are the source of this data. It turns out they need to contact the API. If there is someone here who develops crypto wallets, and what is their way of monetizing? Except fee. Selling data, something else. In Minsk I know somebody developed wallets. The idea is cool. But it seems to me to go into it not from the wallets, because according to my observations, people do not make transactions with their crypto wallets. And those people who seriously play DEX, it's generally done differently. They will not come from the wallets. That's about the nodes. This topic is very interesting. If you do the analysis, if you make such a network of information about the latest newest transactions on the nodes, then you can very much get there, where other people get there after a few seconds, and this can be significant. I've seen such networks, let's say, as in Fura. They provide API access to the nodes. Let's admit to the blockchain X. Because to keep your own blockchain is a great pain, to adjust it, to support, to upgrade, and in this you must constantly understand, constantly spend on this effort, and you don't want to spend. It would be desirable simply to take API and to begin to apply to it your own tools. Does it provide such a platform as a source, or do you not know? I don't know. But the idea is good. Make such a service and they will use it. Just the service already exists. He calls Infura. No, Infura is a bit about the other. It's about public access to the node, so that you do not put your own node. And if you want to know the first about the transaction that went somewhere in the network, Infura will not help you. Oh, good. Is there an option? I know that each node is allowed in the same Ethereum. It in the local state stores the time of receiving the transaction. Is this information public or is it private? Then you can use this information, if it's collected from all nodes, to identify the source of the transaction. Because now you probably do not know the source of the transaction we started sending out. Well, I didn't deal with this issue. If I do it deeply, it's possible to build on this the analysis of those transactions that are on the status of pending, but they have more information about them than the one in blockchain. And I think this topic is very interesting here. I also thought about this story can be monetized because it has value. I personally did not do it, but if you do, it will be very cool. I'm just not digging too deep. No, I'm deeply digging, but I just cannot remember everything. So, perfect. Are there any more questions? I think that now it's just 10 p.m. and it's time to finish.